Hey everybody, it's me Amanda with Once in a Wild, and welcome back to another Once in a Wild Wednesday live stream, monthly live stream now, and we're so happy to be back and actually live, and thank you for having patience with us, and thank you for enjoying all of our reruns that we've been posting. We are going to start going live once a month, and our goal is to go live every first Wednesday of the month. So happy December, and it's good to be back, and we'll be getting started in just a little bit. That was my attempt to fade out our our in-between music, our little loop music, and we'll probably play some more music here in a little bit, of course. I'm really happy that everybody is here. If you are there, make sure and say hello. I see some followers on Instagram over here. That's what that is. Instagram checking in. Hello, Viviana, and hello some other people there as well. And Twitch, you're going to jump over on Twitch. Great. We're all over the place. We go live across social media now once a month on the first Wednesday of the month for Once in a Wild Wednesday, of course. I think it's time to go ahead and officially get started. Make sure the volume is up. One moment. Now we're going to officially get started. Oh my goodness, there we go. And please forgive me, it's been a minute since I've actually been live, so I might be a little bit rusty, but thank you for forgiving me ahead of time. I'm going to turn on comments over here. It's so good to see everybody watching, and if you're out there, make sure and comment down below whatever social media you prefer. Please keep it family friendly as always. This is a family channel and a family show, and all ages are welcome, and this is where we actually go live now once a month, and we're going to bring some real animals onto the show and talk about them and talk about a topic. So I want to know what you guys want to hear about here at Once in a Wild Wednesday. I want to make sure that we are talking about topics and bringing up topics that you care about. So please make sure if you have any suggestions, you can always message us on social media, or you can leave me a comment. Hopefully I will see it while the live stream is going on, and that would be very helpful on maybe some suggestion. But today it's December, right? And so Christmas and the holidays in general are right around the corner. Whether or not you celebrate Christmas or not, happy holidays, and maybe some gifts to look forward to coming up. So we actually do have a little bit of a topic going on today. I thought I would talk about something a little bit controversial, but also a fun topic, nothing too serious. We try not to be political here once in a while. But today's topic is actually going to be about Christmas, and that is, do animals make good Christmas gifts? So be thinking about some questions regarding that. Have you ever received an animal for a Christmas gift in the past? Have you gotten animal themed gifts in the past? Nothing wrong with that, of course. We all love animals here, and we have animal stuff that we like and enjoy, right? But I'm talking about real life animals, living creatures. Do they make good Christmas gifts? So we're going to discuss that today, and that's going to be our topic at hand today. I thought that would be pretty appropriate for December. I've also linked some other of our past videos in the description down below, except for on Instagram. But over on the main socials, we've got some links for you that I've actually pasted over there. But if you go to our YouTube, you can go to a playlist, which is like animal advice. I'm not 100% sure that's what I called it, but it's something like that, animal care advice or animal advice. And there's a bunch of these live streams from the past that talk about animal care advice, maybe just good advice in general about your animals or about animals. And a lot of that has to do with pets. So here at Once in a Wild, if you're not familiar with us, let me go ahead and tell you about us. We are a mobile zoo. So we have some animals that aren't really good pets and some animals that can be pets to some people and everything in between. And we have animals that travel around to different places like classrooms and birthday parties and nursing homes and all kinds of stuff. And we bring animals in person to those things. And we also bring animals to you virtually as well. So we've got all sorts of different animal programs. It could be something very casual like a petting zoo or a meet and greet where it's just super casual and you're just meeting animals without having to sit down and pay attention to what I'm saying. And we also do formal presentations as well, especially during, for classrooms and some birthday parties and things like that, where you get to learn a lot. Every time you meet a Once in a Wild animal, or if you have a Once in a Wild program, whether virtual or in person, it is an educational experience, but it's not just all about quote unquote exotic animals or wild animals. Sometimes we talk about pets, and that's actually what this is going to be about today. Maybe you guys have exotic pets, or maybe you have domesticated pets like cats and dogs and bunny rabbits and things like that. All pets are important and all pets are family. And also sometimes pets are gifts, right? So let's talk about that today. But Once in a Wild in general, we are based in South Texas. We are in San Antonio, Texas, good old San Antonio. That's where I was born and raised, and we love living here. But we like to bring animals to the community, all sorts of positive interactions with animals of all types, from creepy crawlies like tarantulas all the way up to mammals like our Flemish giant rabbit, Fandor. So we have lots of different types of animals. We've got birds as well. We've got reptiles, amphibians, and more. So that is what we do as a company. And if you'd like to learn more, we have a website called onceinawild.com, of course, and you can reach that very easily, onceinawild.com. And we also have social media all over the place. We even have TikTok. We don't do as much on TikTok these days, but I will get better about that soon, I promise. I will make it my New Year's resolution to, I was supposed to cross my finger, I was supposed to do this. I promise, while crossing my finger, just kidding. For New Year's, my resolution is to post more on TikTok. How about that? I know that's not a very serious resolution, but I think it's a good one for once in a while, because I know a lot of people do want to see more cute and fun videos over there on TikTok, and maybe even some live streams every once in a while. Now that we are just going live once a month for our official live stream, experience, if you will, maybe I'll have more time to do like a once a month TikTok live or once a week or something like that. We'll just see what I can fit into our schedule. You must understand that we are very, very busy, which is a great thing, and I'm not complaining. We are very happy to be busy as a company. If you would like to help us out and help out our animals to be fed and taken care of and help us pay our bills and pay our staff, we have wonderful staff that help us out as well to take care of the animal. If you want to help us out whatsoever, you can donate. We do have a Venmo and a Cash App, as well as a PayPal and all sorts of ways to donate. And you can go to our website to find out more. But Venmo and Cash App are the easiest one. It's just at once in a while or $ once in a while. You can help us out there. And the best way to help us out is either by purchasing merch from our website, onceinawild.com. We've got all kinds of fun stickers and sweaters and all kinds of fun merch that Ricky has designed. My husband, Ricky, who is the co-owner of Once in a While. You've probably seen him on some of the past live streams too, or some of the social. But we have merch for you guys to purchase if you would like. What a great Christmas gift. And we even have gift cards too. So those are great stocking stuffers. A lot of the items on onceinawild.com for merch, they're small. So you can stuff them in stockings, or you can give them digitally as well. And a lot of the stuff is clothing, things that you can wear, and cute little designs. So check it out, onceinawild.com. That's a great way to support what we do. And all, most of the proceeds, not necessarily all of the merch proceeds, but some of the proceeds from the merch, of course, go to our animal care, and all donations go to animal care as well. And if you want to purchase your own animal encounter, that's a great way to help us out, of course. It helps us to stay in business, of course, and also by spreading the word. So if you have animal loving family or friends or teachers, moms, whatever you can think of, anyone and everyone can experience a Once in a Wild experience, even if it's just a Zoom, something like that. Zooms are really fun, and people still purchase the Zooms nowadays if they happen to live outside of our vicinity. We can't travel too far away from San Antonio, right? So we do have those Zoom experiences too. But anyone who likes animals or just wants to learn more or can benefit from a little bit of animal therapy, etc., is included in the Once in a Wild, spectrum. So we can bring animals to you and make your day better and your life better. And that is a great way to help us out too, because you get something in return, and then you're helping us out as well. And all of that does help support what we do, which is to kind of spread the word about animals, educate the public, and also, everything that we do that is our goal, which is to help you fall in love with the animals that we love and make the world a better place in general, I hope. So yes, let me see what you guys have to say so far. Viviana's here, of course. On Twitch now. Okay, got you. Yes, dogs too are part of the family. We're going to include all animals that can possibly be a pet, or even an animal that you could have in your possession as a gift for Christmas, right? Let me know if you've ever had an animal pet given to you for Christmas or something like that. That would be a pretty cool story to share here on the live stream. So I think that's enough said. Maybe Ricky, if he is watching, can help me remember any other announcements. One more announcement before I get started with our animal encounter portion and our topic. We do have some more Morgan's Wonderland appearances coming up. If you check out our onceinawild.com website and go to our calendar of events for December, we've got many other dates coming up for Morgan's Wonderland. We're going to be there for 1 hour at a time for a meet and greet. Rango the Owl is going to be there, Sandor the Rabbit, all kinds of other animals too, weather depending, but those two for sure will be there every time as long as everything goes well. But it's weather dependent. So if it gets colder, we are outside under a pavilion, but it is outdoors. So if it gets colder than about 60 degrees, we're going to have to play it by ear on the other animals that can attend. But Rango the owl and Sandor the rabbit are typically going to be there every single time. So you'll be able to at least see those two, if not many more, at the meet and greet that we're having there for the Christmas festivities going on at Morgan's Wonderland. And that's right here in San Antonio. So you can check out our website to find out more about the dates, and also check out our social media. For example, Instagram and Facebook, they have all the information there as well on when we're going to be there. And if you ever have questions, please feel free to contact us anytime. We've got our number down below, and you can also message us on social media. But you can literally just text the number down below and enlist it in the description, and I will answer you. Believe it or not, I do answer all my texts. Social media is actually a little bit slower of a way to contact me, but Ricky's pretty good about answering social. And hello, Instagram, once again. We are going to be talking about whether or not you should give the gift of animals for Christmas. Now, speaking of which, a good alternative to giving a live animal, maybe a once in a wild experience, right? And I'm not just trying to like plug us over and over again, but it's actually true. That's partially why we opened up. We want to be accessible to anyone. If you can't have your own pets, you can't afford them, or there's some other reason, or maybe you just don't want pets and you want to be able to travel as much as you want and have less responsibility. Maybe you had a dog before and now you're just, you don't really want to get another dog now, etc. Or you don't want to get another XYZ animal. You just want to have that freedom. We understand. We are definitely making animals our life, and it's hard for us to go out of town or do anything else. So we definitely get that. So if you are one of those, or maybe you're not sure about a certain type of animal for your family or for your child or something like that, once again, check out some of those videos that I've linked down below. There's so much more plethora of information and knowledge on YouTube and the internet, but just be cautious about who you're listening to. You want to make sure and ask at least a few experts before you make a new decision. That's very, very important, right? Especially for an animal that you've never had before, a species you've never taken care of, for example, maybe a reptile or a bird. Those guys are very specialized. So we want to make sure and do all of our good research with the right experts, or at least enthusiasts, or people that have experience with these animals. You want to ask around before you just say, yes, I want this animal, and dive right in to having this new animal. Now, some of you that I've never seen the show before, you might be wondering what the heck this is in front of me. I do have a platform in front of me. It's like a table with a thing on top of it, and I've got a rug on top of it for some of the animals to be on here in a little bit. We're actually going to hang out with 3 animals at the end together, and 2 animals one by one. So it's going to be 5 animals total. Sometimes I bring 3 animals, sometimes 1, sometimes extras. Today, since we are deciding to go live only once a month now, like actually live, which by the way, we still post our reruns, so you'll see those coming up at least once a week, if not more often than that. So you'll still have some amazing once in a wild content to watch. And there's so many more past videos you can go back and watch as well, including those ones linked below, which pertain to today's topic. But you will see kind of this platform right here. This is for some of the animals to kind of hang out with us. But we're going to have 2 animals that are going to come out one at a time. And then we're going to have 3 animals that, in theory, I'm going to try to have out at the same time because they are friends and they get along just fine. So we will do our very best. If not, then we'll just go with the flow, right? Like we always do. This is real life. They are real animals that are coming out, and we do our very best if they give us signals that they need to leave or anything like that or something. Accidents happen, and I don't mean like scary accidents. I mean like restroom accidents and things like that, right? Because it's animal. So we'll just see what happens. But that is going to be our goal, or my personal goal, is to have 1 animal and then another animal and then 3 at the same time. So it'll be like 3 rounds of animal. But we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff. So let's go ahead and get started, I think. And like I said, a great alternative to maybe purchasing a live animal could be like a stuffed animal or a toy, but it could also be something like a once in a wild experience. And you can certainly gift those for someone. We can make it a surprise, or we can make it not a surprise. It can be for a special occasion, or just because. You let me know. We're fully custom, and we've got different packages and prices and things like that. And we have a price that suits everyone. So don't you worry. You just let me know if you're interested, and we'll get you some more information and we'll get going. Oh, it looks like Instagram is pausing briefly because of connection issues. If we have any connection issues or if we have technical problems, we just go with the flow as well, right? Right. So let's talk about this. Do animals make good Christmas gifts? Have you guys ever received a animal for a Christmas present? I know I have. I'm pretty sure one of my dogs, Holly, when I was a kid, she was kind of like a pseudo Christmas gift for me, but it was also for the whole family. It was our family dog, right? But we call her Holly because she was kind of a Christmas dog. It wasn't necessarily like let's put the puppy in a box and open it up. And we certainly didn't like record it on camera, or we didn't have, our smartphones back then, so we couldn't easily record stuff. There were video cameras back in my time. I'm not that old. I am old, but not that old. But we did get Holly around the holidays, holidays, and Holly was a great dog for us, and we did have her into old age, right, until she passed away. That is my biggest memory of an animal for Christmas. I'm pretty sure I also got a rabbit for Easter. I was very young, and I was not a good owner for a rabbit at the time. I was probably like 4 or 5 years old, and I'm pretty sure that was Easter time and not Christmas. But I'm trying to think and rack my brain back to Christmas time and animals. But I've had a ton of different pets for throughout my childhood and my life in general and whatnot. But is it necessarily a good idea? Yeah, Easter rabbits, definitely Easter rabbits. Same, Viviana says, same here. It was when I got my rabbit was for Easter. That's not really a good habit either, but we learn as we progress as the human race, right? We're learning and we're trying to do better. So that's what this topic is all about. Do animals make good Christmas gifts? You tell me your opinions on that. Any opinions are fine. We're going to discuss pros and cons here. So in my opinion, in general, it's really not a good idea. It all depends though. So if you, for example, you are a family who, you've had a certain type of dog breed. You're experts in this dog breed. Maybe you're breeders. Maybe you live on a ranch and you have maybe horses or goats or anything like that. And you're already prepared. You've had this breed of dog, or you've at least had a dog before. You've had something similar before. You've done all your research. You have horses and you're getting another horse, or you have goats and you're getting maybe another breed of goat or something like that. There's so many different scenarios. Everybody's life is different. And if you're a house that has already you know what you're doing and things like that. You've already researched, you've done some thinking about it, maybe for months, maybe for at least some weeks. And then it just happens to be Christmas, and now it's a good time to be like, hey, little Susie or whoever it is, guess what? For Christmas, we're getting you a dog or whatever it is. I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. I think that that's fine. I think it all depends on the family, the situation, and the animal, right? What I don't think is necessarily a good idea is this, and I'm going to highlight this on most of our social, and that's impulse buying live animals, right? So we can impulse buy a lot of stuff. I'm never ever going to judge somebody for impulse buying an object or a thing of some sort, something that isn't alive, even a plant. You can impulse buy a plant. I think that's okay as long as you take good care of the plant, as long as you don't impulse buy everything under the sun, right? And then go bankrupt. I think, of course, that's a different topic, right? I'm not a financial expert. I don't pretend to be one on TV, or a live stream. But I'm talking about live animal. And there's a really great live stream we did a while back that's one of my favorites, and that is Pets Are Not Toys. This is kind of the same kind of family, right? So while we're talking, I can't forget, we should probably bring some live animals on the Live Animal Show. Let's talk about impulse buying of live animals. Now, all of our animals coming out today, let me just make sure before I say this. 1, 2, 3. Yes, all of our animals coming out today are actually rehomed animals where they had another home before us, and then they were either given to us or we adopted them kind of second or third hand. So our first animal friend is one of my very favorite animals, and it happens to be actually in the category of animals that is my very favorite of all the animals all over the world, and that's snakes. So this is Slytherin, and Slytherin is a California king snake, and he actually had a previous home before us. So he was somebody's pet for a long, long time. And the reason that I wanted to show some of our secondhand animals is to kind of make a little bit of a point. And I'm not trying to shame the people that rehomed them to us, because I think they made the right decision. I think everybody's life is different, and there's no reason to judge people that take good care of an animal and then just make that decision that they need to rehome them. For whatever reason, that happened. Life is life, and it happened. And I'm not upset at them, nothing like that. In fact, I'm really happy to have Slytherin. Slytherin came from a family where he was somebody's child's pet and he was very beloved, but that child, I believe, went off to college or had to leave the house in some capacity. Maybe they just grew up and left. That's all I was told. I didn't really pry into their life or information. It's none of my business. I was just like, okay, that's fair. You know, he looks very well taken care of. Are you sure you want to give him up? I always ask people if they're sure, because that's a really big decision, and that could be something they regret later. So I always want to make 100% sure that they're ready to rehome them to us. If we ever adopt an animal, whether it's a secondhand animal or an animal that we purchase, these animals never leave once in a while. They are going to be with us their whole life. We adopt animals and we keep them for their whole lifetime. We actually do not foster animals and then rehome them. If we have a call or some kind of text or something saying, hey, can you take this animal? And we can't take them, we don't take them and then give them away. We actually will reach out to other colleagues and friends and acquaintances and things like that and make sure that that we spread the word about animals that may need a home, right? But we're not going to take in animals and then give them away again. That's just something that we don't do here once in a while. We're not a rescue, although we do rescue, right? But these animals that we're bringing out today, they're all secondhand or third hand. And I want to kind of make a point a little bit. Not that I think that purchasing animals is wrong, depending on where you're purchasing them from, right? But it's always a great idea to kind of adopt instead of shop sometimes, right? If it's right for you. So Slytherin was one of our rehomed animals. Like I said, he was loved a lot before we got him, but it just wasn't a good fit for them in the long run, so they decided to rehome him. And a lot of people do impulse buy animals, and then either they don't think about the long commitment, or they don't think about the future maybe, and they just want them. And that's not necessarily something we want to encourage, right? Because it's not necessarily a good idea. Because animals are not toys. They're not an object. They're alive, and they're going to live. And hopefully they're going to live a full life. And snakes like Slytherin, I mean, they can live easily into their 20s, if not older than that. Colubrids like California king snakes, which is what Slytherin is, they don't live as long as like some of the constrictors and things like that, like boas and pythons, but they still live a good, healthy, long life. That's a lot longer than most dogs, that's for sure, and most cats. And some other animals like tortoises and birds and some others live a long, long time. And a lot of people, they see an animal, they want the animal, they want to give it to their kids, etc., or to their mom or whoever, to their wife or husband, and they don't think about, oh my gosh, this animal's going to live a long, long time. And that's essentially what happened with Slytherin, although we're very happy that he was given to us, and we're going to have him his whole rest of his life. He is not old, but he's about middle-aged. He's hopefully still got a lot of years ahead of him. But that is just something to kind of think about. It's not super responsible to impulse buy animals, right? So if you're out there at the pet store, or maybe even an animal shelter, maybe you're at the animal shelter and you haven't done any research and you're just like, oh, I want this puppy, or I want this whatever, probably should wait and think about it, at least sleep on it, unless it's an emergency situation, like some dogs, they only have so long at the shelter and things like that. That's really sad. I mean, there's exceptions to the rule, of course, but in general, it's really, really good for the animal's sake and for your sake in the long run to not impulse buy animals, right? Or impulse take in animal. Another thing to consider is, of course, their needs. Snakes aren't for everybody, although they're my favorite animals. I will never not have snakes. Slytherin is one of my favorite animals in the entire collection, and we have about 100 animals. But a lot of people don't want to feed them like meat items, like mice and chicks and rats and things like that. A lot of people are not comfortable with that, even though that's the only thing that snakes eat. Snakes don't eat vegetables and salad, do they? So you have to be comfortable doing that. You have to be a little bit knowledgeable as well on their care, right? I don't expect people to be experts to be able to have certain pets, but you definitely want to do your research, like I mentioned before. So impulse buying is never a good thing, and that's really where people get in trouble. A lot of times they have to make a really hard decision on what they're going to do with their animal. And heaven forbid they actually do something irresponsible, like let the animal free, let the animal loose, things like that. We actually have so many lizards here in our Once in a While collection that are actually lost lizards. There's so many of them. Eddie the bearded dragon. Let's see, Dino the Savannah Monitor, one of our newest lizards, who probably won't be a very frequent animal ambassador because he's so afraid of everything, is going to be Hulk, our new veiled chameleon. I'm going to try my best to get some photos of him so I can at least post on social media. He's going to have a forever home with us. He does look like an older guy, but he's actually a veiled chameleon that turned up in somebody's neighborhood. randomly, and somebody had the well, they did the right thing and they had the knowledge to know, like, hey, that's not a local animal. That's probably somebody's pet. That's a chameleon. There's no chameleons in Texas. So we need to go ahead and catch him up and see if we can find his home. And they couldn't find the owner. So we think that Hulk, Dino, Eddie, maybe some of the others that we have. Lulu is another one too. Lulu is our Tegu. We think that those guys were set free at some point. Hopefully not. I mean, animals do get loose, of course, but it's actually, unfortunately, a lot more common for people to impulse buy a lizard, a snake, a turtle, something like that, and then decide, oh my gosh, I don't want this animal anymore. You know what? It's probably more happy being wild, so I'm just going to set it free. And that is not a good idea. We do not recommend that here at Once in a Wild. If you end up with an animal that you can't house anymore and you just can't keep and it's really not a good fit for you, the humane and right thing to do is to look for another home for that animal. Do not release animals into the wild unless you're a wildlife rehabilitator, right? You're licensed to do that. Or number two, it came out of the wild in the first place and you shouldn't have had it at all. So if you pick up an animal like a toad or a snake in your backyard and you're like, hey, I want to keep it for a week or whatever, and then you're like, wait, what have I done? Put that animal back. As long as it hasn't been too long in your care, it can go right back to the wild where it came from. Put that thing back where it came from, or so help me. That is not the same thing that I'm talking about. I'm talking about animals that you buy or get from the store or get from a breeder or a reptile convention, or maybe it's even a pet bird, something like that. And you just decide to set it free because you think it's going to be better off free. That is not true. Animals, once they're acclimated to your care, they're not really going to be able to survive after that if set free. And also, a lot of these animals aren't from where you live. So a lot of times you will be releasing an invasive species, which is never a good thing. Invasive species are animals that don't belong where you are releasing them to. For example, iguanas over in Florida. That is a big major problem with pet iguanas. So iguanas in Florida, it's debatable on how that happened. They're kind of taking over because South Florida is a very good climate and environment for iguanas because it's really similar to their native habitat, which is Central and South America in the jungle, of course, and the trees and everything, green iguanas. But green iguanas are often pets, and sometimes people get them and they're like, oh my gosh, what have I done? This is the worst pet I've ever had, because they are. They're terrible pets. We have Joanna the iguana, one of our oldest animal ambassadors. I say oldest, she's one of the original animal ambassadors for Once in a Wild, and I've had her for 12 years in my life. So Joanna used to be somebody's pet, but I didn't bring her today because, number one, she's a little bit big for what I'm trying to accomplish today. I wanted to have animals that could kind of be out here at the same time, or animals I can easily hold in one hand or two hands. Joanna's really big, so I would have to either hold her all the way back here or have her on the table and just her on the table, which we can do for another live stream, of course. And she's been on the live stream before. But Joanna was also not really rehomed to me. She was, I actually found her at a flea market in Florida when I lived there. And I was told that the owner dropped her off after some sort of argument with the family. Maybe the family member didn't want them anymore. And the owner was like, okay, I'll drop her off. But they dropped her off at a flea market, which isn't the best idea. Don't do that. It wasn't really a good situation. And then the flea market resold her. It was just odd. It was an odd situation, but I ended up with Joanna. Now she will have her forever home with us, right? But she wasn't an animal that somebody like gave to us secondhand, so I didn't bring her today. Plus, she's a little bit hard to fit in frame and hold today. But Joanna the iguana, another kind of animal that's had at least one or two other homes, right? Okay, I'm just checking comments just to make sure I'm not missing anything. Oh my goodness. Viviana says, you had your dachshund for 15 years and 18 days. You know how long. Yes. It is my least favorite fact about animals is they don't live forever. Isn't that true? And they don't live long enough. And now you're in a place that doesn't allow dogs. I mean, that does happen. Maybe things will change for you in the future, but that actually, that's a great thing to bring up too. So a lot of people will get a pet, doesn't matter what it is, it could be a cat or a dog or a snake or anything. And maybe their landlord doesn't allow those animals. And so they have to rehome them or give them up because they can't just easily pick up and move. That is life right there, right? So that does happen a lot. The iguana, yeah, if that's what you're talking about, an iguana bite hurts. Yes, it does. But I was trying to talk about invasive species. So that's never a good idea either, even for the individual animal just to be let go in the wild. They're not going to make it most likely. And also it's illegal because you're being cruel to animals, but also invasive species problem. So why are invasive species a problem? Well, some are more problematic than others, but for example, cats, outdoor cats and cats that have gone rogue, feral cats, those guys are big time predators. They also spread disease as well and have a whole slew of other issues that they present as a species, outdoor cats. And also the iguanas. Let's talk about the iguanas again. Iguanas are vegetarian, but they do actually take over and eat a lot of vegetation that other animals could benefit from eating, like wild animals that belong there. And then animals such as cane toads over in Australia, for example, that's an invasive species as well. Those guys are highly, highly toxic. And cane toads are the largest species of frog slash toad in the world. So they eat everything in their path. And a lot of animals can't eat them. Most animals can't eat them because they're extremely poisonous. And so they just keep breeding and having more toads and eating all the wildlife and taking over. So that's actually a huge problem. The other animals haven't adapted to the invasive species, and the invasive species hasn't adapted to being there, but it usually kind of, they trump the other species in the area. So it ends up being a really, really big problem. But I mean, Slytherin, at least, and some of these others that you're about to meet, they had a happy ending because they ended up in a good home. And that does happen quite a bit. So if you're ever looking for a particular type of animal, could be a bird, could be a snake, could be a dog or a cat or a horse, doesn't matter what it is, you should probably look into animals that need homes that are maybe secondhand, especially for reptiles. Things like reptiles or even fish, you can look up online, get in some networks, maybe on Facebook or social media in general, maybe even Craigslist, you never know. Just ask. Facebook Marketplace, you can see if people have reptile supplies. A lot of those places have reptiles too, and see if there's any that kind of have been passed around and need some help. That's always a good thing to do, right? So let's talk about Slytherin as a species just briefly, since we are an education channel after all. Slytherin is California king snake, not considered to be a domestic species at all. This is a wild species, but they do sometimes make pretty decent animal companion. And they're some of my favorites, actually. I love snakes because they're quiet. There's no nail trims involved. They don't shed hair. They only go to the restroom about once a week or maybe twice a week tops. They only eat about once a week or every other week, depending on the species. And some snakes even eat about once a month or twice a month. So they're very easy to feed, in my opinion. King snakes and other colubrids like him, they eat very well. So they're not hard to feed. Some snakes are a little more picky eaters like ball pythons, but snakes in general are super easy to feed as long as you don't mind what they're eating. I certainly don't. I have never had any problem with feeding them their natural food. Also, snakes, believe it or not, can actually eat dead things. They're not necessarily going to have to eat something alive. In fact, you shouldn't feed your snake live animals. It's not humane for the animal being fed. The animal feeder that's being fed to the animal, that's what I mean. It's also not humane for the snake because those animals often will actually fight back and hurt your snake. So it's actually better to get them used to eating dead things, and most snakes eat dead things just fine. So frozen thawed rodents and birds and things like that is what they eat. But I love them. I think they're great. But what was I saying? Oh, they are as a species, they're native to California. So the California king snake and other surrounding states as well. They're not just like, only endemic to California. They can actually cross the border too, and there's some other ones too. But this type of California king snake, he's a little less black than some of the other California king snakes out in the wild. So he's more of a coastal, kind of like near the beach and things like that, type of California king snake. These guys are amazing, amazing animals, super important for the natural environment. They are predators, and it's important to have predators and prey in the food chain, of course. And these guys are great rodent eaters, but California king snakes and all the other king snakes and some other snakes too that are similar, like milk snakes, they're known for eating other reptiles, including other snakes. That's why they call them the king snake after all. King snakes can even eat things like venomous species. So a king snake in its natural environment can eat venomous snakes that live in its natural environment too. Rattlesnakes, they can eat cottonmouth, they can eat coral snakes, they can eat copperheads, all kinds of venomous species. And venomous species of snakes are also some of my favorite animals too, super important to nature. They also do a good job of hunting rodents and all kinds of critters for us, very important. But we don't want too many of anything, right? So and almost nobody can eat venomous snakes in the wild. So these guys actually do a pretty good job of keeping venomous snake populations lower and even kind of weeding out the weak or the diseased animals in their path. You know what I mean? So if you have a venomous snake that has had a bunch of babies, and some of those babies, maybe they're not doing so well, maybe they don't have great genetics, or maybe they're sickly, things like that. These guys will come along and eat those guys first because they're slower, oftentimes, and easier to catch. And then we have a healthier kind of dynamic in there. So that's one reason why predators are so important to the natural environment in general. But that's that, and they are so misunderstood. These guys actually, snakes are some of the most feared animals in nature. You may be not surprised to hear that. I love them to death, and I've never been afraid of snakes. But a lot of people are afraid of snakes because they're under the misconception that they're all going to bite you. They're all dangerous, where most snakes want literally nothing to do with you whatsoever. Snakes really don't think a whole lot about like going after big animals. They are afraid of you. They want to stay hidden and just to be able to do what they do, which is eating a lot of little animals for us and things like that, keeping the planet cleaner and preventing disease. If a snake is afraid, they'll try to get away. If a snake can't get away, then they may try to bite you, or they may try to, some snakes even play dead and things like that. Snakes like this, if they bite you, there's absolutely no problem whatsoever because their teeth are very tiny and their mouth is very small. The bigger the snake, the bigger the bite, of course. So like a big reticulated python or a Burmese python, that wouldn't be fun to get bitten by. You'd be okay, but it wouldn't be fun. But snakes that you don't want to get bitten by, of course, are the venomous types. But venomous snakes don't want to bite you either. They don't want to waste their venom on you. They rather use it for their food because that's what it's for. It's for making sure their food doesn't get away and pre-digesting their food, etc., etc. So it's not to be wasted, but if they have to bite you, they will because they're terrified. And that makes sense. So the best way to avoid getting bitten by snakes is not touching snakes. So if we see one in the wild, we don't pick them up. We don't touch them. We don't hug them or kiss them, right? And if you are somebody that doesn't care for snakes, we don't harm them. And that might sound weird. You might be like, oh, well, if I'm afraid of them and it's going to like bite my dog, shouldn't I kill it to make sure it doesn't get my dog? Well, that's actually putting you, number one, in close proximity to the snake. So you're also attacking the snake. Number two, the snake is going to defend itself. The best way to get bitten by any wild animal is to try to harm it, even a snake. So please don't do that. You're gonna, in the end, you may endanger your life or endanger the life of your children, your pets, everything by getting closer to the snake. So the best thing you can do is leave the snake alone. If you're afraid of snakes and you don't want them around you, you don't want them in your backyard, one good way to scare a snake away, there's two ways. Number one is a water hose. So if the snake is like a little bit further away from you and you have a water hose, you can spray the snake with the cold water. They'll usually be like, what the heck? And they'll leave. Snakes don't have ears, so they can't really like hear things that you say, and they can only hear deep noises, or maybe when you walk by something that touches the ground and they're touching the ground, they can feel vibrations and things like that. They can't really hear, at least not well. So you yelling, hey, snake, get away from me, they're not really going to respond to that. But a water hose works really well. Sprinkling them with the water hose, they'll probably be like, whoa, and then like just run away or slither away, I guess. They don't really run, do they? They slither away. And usually they're not going to come back after that. Another way is to play really, really loud music. And I just said the snakes don't hear, but they do feel noise. So if you turn up your music, say you have some really, really loud rap music and you want to turn it all the way up, they don't like the bass. They don't understand what that is. They might be like, oh my gosh, this is an earthquake. There's something scary. Somebody's walking by. I want to get the heck out of here. And they will leave. That is actually a really good way to, for lack of a better term, scare away a snake out of your particular yard. Also, if you have dogs, please be careful around the snakes, and you want to make sure you have a clean yard. The messier the yard, the more like, you know, flat, maybe like wood piles, things like that, brush piles. You're going to encourage more snake hiding places and more rodents too. And then you'll just have a beautiful snake environment. You can't really blame them for moving in. But watch your dogs, of course. But if you have dogs and if you have chickens and if you have other animals like that, usually, not 100% of the time, but usually snakes will avoid your yard. I really haven't ever seen any snakes in my yard because I've always had dogs. I've always had something in the yard, so they don't really want to be there. And we keep our yard really, really clean. I don't like a mess. So by default, I don't really have a ton of snakes. I love snakes. I would love to see more snakes, but I know it's not safe for them to be there, and it's not safe for our animals, for like venomous snakes and things like that. So if you have a pretty clean yard, you're not really going to have a problem, but just keep your eyes peeled. Make sure and always look where you're stepping. I don't recommend walking around barefooted, especially in the woods and things like that. You want to wear some sturdy shoes and just watch where you're going. If you're ever hiking, you want to have like a walking stick or something to kind of go ahead of you and disturb the brush in front of you. That way snakes will hopefully leave. But most of the time, snakes will not bite you. They actually would rather get away. But if you step on them or if you try to harm them, they're going to try to defend themselves, because wouldn't you? Obviously, right? So just be very, very careful. No worries, no worries. Hello, everybody saying hello, and you're welcome. Yes, we're just talking about Slytherin really quick, and we're talking about secondhand pets and animals in general, and whether or not they should be given for Christmas. And it all kind of depends, right? So Slytherin, we're happy to have, whoa, he's jumping right out of my hand. We're happy to have you, and really happy that somebody decided to give you up. But that does happen quite a bit, right? And you don't ever really want to put yourself, that is really heartbreaking when you decide to maybe impulse buy or on a whim get an animal, and then down the road, maybe a year later or even sooner than that, or maybe even later, who knows, you have to rehome them. That's really sad, and that's not really right? So we need to make sure and take those decisions very, very seriously. And that's something we try to do here once in a while. We don't adopt any animals that we can't take on, and we don't give them away once they're in our care. They're going to be here in their forever home with us. So in case you were wondering about that, that is the truth. Okay, so Slytherin is going to go back and rest. If you guys have any questions about Slytherin or snakes in general, feel free to go ahead and ask. Wonderful animals, very smooth to touch. Slytherin can be seen at lots and lots of public events, as well as private events, and even Zooms as well. He's a really, really frequent flyer, if you will, at some of our events, and for good reason. He is just such a sweetheart. He's the best king snake I've ever known. King snakes aren't always like this, by the way. So sometimes people do adopt pets and they assume that they're going to be one certain way because they've had experience with another individual that way. And as you know from like cats and dogs, you probably know this, or any animal, they all have their own personality. Snakes also have their own personality. And no king snake is dangerous to humans, but some king snakes do try to bite, or they are maybe having like a really high food drive, and they associate your hands with food. And if you don't wash your hands frequently or kind of maybe handle them enough and things like that, they do tend to be a little nippy or even try to eat your fingers and things like that. They're not trying to be aggressive, they're just hungry. Slytherin's not like that. He's actually really well behaved. He is usually very, very good with handling, never really had a problem, and he's kind of unique that way. So I think he's a super special guy, and we love him. And he's so calm too. A lot of king snakes are a little bit hyper, but he is just such a beautiful, calm, great snake for people getting over their fears. Even if you don't want to hold Slytherin yourself, I can have you like touch his skin, and he's so smooth and things like that. I had somebody tell me once, I'm pretty sure it was a child, that he feels like a strawberry. So like the texture of his skin, it's just like a living, moving strawberry, right? But he's long. And the black and white coloration, by the way, that they have is super unique. And this is for spooking away scary animals. So this pattern isn't often seen in nature. It's a black and white pattern, but it's not a striping that actually blends into stuff like maybe I don't know, I'm trying to think of a black and white animal that blends into stuff. Zebras are theoried to blend into each other, right? They have black and white stripes, but they're like really tiny stripes, like kind of skinny. Zebra stripes are actually the newest kind of reasoning for their stripes, or what it helps them with is actually not getting bitten by flies. Did you know that? So if you have like plaid or stripes on outside, you're less likely to get bitten by bugs than if you wear solid colors. That's a fun fact. But these guys, back to the king snake, he's got a really like stark black and white pattern. It's similar to a skunk, or it's similar to a lionfish, or even a porcupine. They have a very strange pattern that stands out, and usually strange patterns that stand out in nature are not good news to those of the animals that are looking at them. So if you're a predator and you're like, oh, maybe it's a fox or something like that, and foxes eat snakes, and they're like, oh my gosh, I want to eat that snake, but I'm a little concerned that this pattern might mean poison. Patterns sometimes mean poison. Some patterns are camouflage, right? Patterns that stand out typically can mean poison. So that fox is going to think twice. And then this clever king snake can get away quickly and live another day to do its job, eating rodents and being beautiful and making the world a better place for snake lovers and not so much snake lovers all over the world, right, Slytherin? Okay, so this guy is going to slither back into his temporary enclosure down here to rest. By the way, snakes also smell with their tongue. You probably notice his tongue flickering in and out. That is a forked tongue. It gives him a sense of direction, helps him smell stuff. They don't really have ears, so they can't really hear. And they do have eyes. Their eyes are always open, but they don't see very well. That sense of smell is his best sense by far, followed by sense of touch. Then probably seeing, then probably is it taste or hearing. They pretty much have neither one of those. So they're kind of limited on their senses, but that sense of smell is excellent. Okay, you guys, we're going to let him slither away. He's going to go back in his little temporary enclosure. When we travel with reptiles, which is something to know if you ever want a reptile, you want a snake, you want a lizard, you want whatever reptile, if it's a smaller reptile or a medium-sized reptile, they typically travel in bins, so boxes. We have like plastic bins that they travel in, and we make sure that they have air holes, of course, so they can breathe well. And then we usually have some sort of substrate or paper towel or something in those travel bins. That way, in case there's a little bit of an accident, they can not be covered in their own mess and things like that. But it's really safe for reptiles to travel in kind of enclosed, kind of smaller than you would think boxes. That way, when you're traveling in the car, they're not going to rustle around too much, etc. But you don't want it to be too small. You don't want it to be too big. So if you need any tips on that matter, I will help you out. I don't mind at all. So we're going to get an extra match for the next animal, because this animal tends to be a lot messier than a snake. Snakes are so very clean as far as animals go. The next animal is a mammal. He's super cute, and he is my favorite of the two that we have. We have two of these guys. It's going to be Linus, and Linus is a really cute little guy. Let's get him out. We'll put him right here for you guys. Hey, Linus. So this is going to be the last animal. It's going to be out here by himself. Then we're going to attempt to have 3 animals at once. So wish me luck on the last 3 animals. But this is Linus. Linus is an African hedgehog, another kind of secondhand animal. I'll pick him up so you can see how cute he is. Look how adorable. People love hedgehogs. We had a couple of, well, we had 2 show and tell animal encounters in a row last Sunday, and they both requested the hedgehog, and it was one of their favorites out of all the animals that came and visited. Hedgehogs are so cute. In my professional opinion, hedgehogs make really terrible pets. Snakes make way better pets for some people than hedgehogs do in general, in my humble and professional opinion. Hedgehogs, not domesticated. Neither are snakes, but these guys are mammals, and non-domesticated mammals are really challenging. Some people keep hedgehogs and do a really good job, and they love them, and it's the right pet for them, and that's fine. But in general, hedgehogs are not good pets, in my opinion. They're not domesticated. They're not social. They don't appreciate company. In fact, they really want to be left alone all the time. Linus is pretty good for a hedgehog. As you can see, he's responding and putting his head down as hedgehogs do, because that's what they do. Hedgehogs are nervous animals, especially with lots of lights and things. They're nocturnal as well. It's another kind of factor that makes them not that good of a pet for a diurnal human like us. We're diurnal, we're daytime animals. These guys are nighttime animals. They're going to be partying and up all night in the dark when you're trying to sleep. Also, hedgehogs are really messy. Really messy. These guys poop so much for a little mammal, and they don't really like go in a litter box. They kind of just go wherever, in my personal experience. These guys are also always on the run in the night. They're either running around their enclosure. They need a pretty sizable enclosure for their tiny size. They're only this big, but they need a pretty sizable enclosure. In the wild, they can run up to 12 miles every single night. That's not like in a week, it's every night. There's a hair in the air. But these guys will just kind of poop and go, poop and go, poop and go. So oftentimes they'll step in their own poop too, which is really fun. Sometimes they'll poop all over you and pee all over you when you're trying to hold them as well. And they're a daily cleanup. These guys cannot go a couple of days, 3 days without being cleaned. It is every single day. You have to clean their habitat every day, in my opinion, and you have to make sure and change their water every day, in my opinion, and make sure they have food every day. So sometimes they'll eat all their food as well, and they have no food. These guys are insectivores, which means they're bug eaters in the wild. They're insect eaters, and they're high metabolism. So they eat all night, and they have a lot of needs. They're also a warm weather animal. So if you happen to live somewhere that's cold, you're going to have a heater on them, or make sure the room that they live in is warm, or have like a space heater or something like that. There's several ways to do that. You could also, you have to give them like blankets to bed in when it's wintertime and things like that. They get really cold, and they're not a seasonal animal in the wild. They're from Africa. This is the African pygmy hedgehog. It's the main species that people have for pets. There's a couple other species of hedgehog that sometimes are pets in weird places, out from the United States. I don't mean weird like y'all are weird. I'm just saying, like, not where I'm from. It's weird to me because I've never seen a pet hedgehog that wasn't an African hedgehog. So African hedgehogs are warm weather. They don't have any season. They're from like the African savanna where there's 2 seasons, but it's not hot, cold, hot, cold. It's actually just rainy or dry. There's no temperature change, right? Oh, he's going potty right now. I told you these guys go to the bathroom a lot. I'm gonna have to get rid of it. What have I done? I have to use my little rag here. I'm sure there will be more before we put Linus away. So, cute animal, wonderful animal, just not a fantastic pet, right? So these guys really aren't the best pet in my opinion. A lot of people, and I mean a lot, impulse buy hedgehogs. Hedgehogs are really popular on social media. They're popular in movies. They're popular in video games. They're popular all over the place. They're really adorable. People know what they are now. And they think they want one. And Linus is a really sweet hedgehog, but he's not an easy animal to take care of by any means. Lots of pooping, lots of peeing. Also, they're covered in spines. I don't understand how this spiny animal became such a popular pet. It's weird to me. They're covered in spines, you guys. I like them too, but I don't love them as a pet. I don't think they're good pets. The spines are super sharp. So you have to socialize your hedgehog or pray and hope that they are a nice hedgehog and won't just ball up the entire time you're trying to hold them. The best way, in my opinion, to handle a hedgehog is something like this, where you have like a surface and they can just kind of crawl around, poop and pee, and it won't get on you. This could be maybe a lap situation where you have them like this, but on a surface is where they tend to kind of feel more comfortable. They don't feel kind of hovered over as much in the situation. They don't feel like you're holding them the whole time and they want to be put down. Hedgehogs aren't really designed to be held and cuddled. They don't even socialize with one another. The only time you would see hedgehogs together in the wild, to my knowledge, for at least the African hedgehog, is going to be during breeding. And of course, breeding again, meaning they have their own children. So they're taking care of their babies. Baby hedgehogs are called hoglets. Hoglets, so cute. And of course, they have to come together to mate and make more babies. That is really the only time that hedgehogs, in my knowledge, in my limited knowledge as a I don't want to say animal expert, but I've been working around animals and with animals for a long time, and I have a zoology degree. But I'm not necessarily like seeing them in the wild every day or anything like that. So I'm just trying to make sure you guys know I'm still humble. I don't know about hedgehogs in the wild per se, but I do know what I've been told, and that is that they are solitary. So they're not really an animal that enjoys your company, your voice, your attention, playing with you, playing fetch, nothing like that. They're not a social animal like a dog or even a cat. Cats aren't really by nature a social animal, but they've been domesticated into being a social-ish animal. And cats have really, really developed human bonds and things like that over being domesticated. This is not really a domesticated animal. Hedgehogs have been pets for a while, but not as long as cats and dogs and horses and ducks and chickens and things like that. Those guys make far better pets than a hedgehog. Also, hedgehogs, they tend to get ill very easily. They have a lot of health issues. Unfortunately, cancer is a big one. Tumors. They can get sick in other ways as well. If they get too cold, they can get like upper respiratory problems. They have to be fed the right diet or they get sick to the stomach. They can get diarrhea. My goodness, there's so many health issues with them. But we do understand why people love them. So a lot of people do not do their proper research, or they do all their research and then they just discover, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? I don't want this guy anymore. I don't want to clean up after this spiky critter that doesn't like me every single day. Even though you should do that. If you adopt any critter, you should give them the best life you possibly can for their whole life. But that is not necessarily what happens in the real world sometimes, right? This is real life. A lot of times people will get a hedgehog and then get rid of the hedgehog. Linus has already had 2 other homes before us, and he is about 1 year old. We do not know his exact birthday or anything like that. I'm just guessing because he looked extremely young when we got him. So to my knowledge, he's about 1 year old, if not a little less. And he's already had 2 other homes besides once in a while. This will be his last home. I absolutely love Linus, you guys. I do not like hedgehogs that much. I am telling the truth. They're not my favorite animal by any stretch of the imagination. 100% not my favorite animal. But I love Linus. Linus is such a great little guy. He's a good hedgehog. He is such a good guy. He's a great animal ambassador, but it's actually kind of unfortunate because he's not a good example he's a good example, but he's not a common example of how they usually act. Usually hedgehogs are balled up the whole time and don't let you come anywhere near them. And they're afraid because wouldn't you be if you were this tiny critter in Africa? This little species, they're one of the smallest species of hedgehog in the world, the African pygmy hedgehog or four-toed hedgehog. They are so little and tiny that without these spines and without their ability to roll up in a ball, they would be eaten by so many animals in Africa or otherwise. Hedgehogs also come from Asia, and the biggest of the hedgehogs, which are about 4 times the size of Linus, about this big, are the European hedgehogs. European hedgehogs are a lot bigger, but they still can get eaten by stuff without these spines. These spines are their main and one and only defense. See that? So if I touch him in a certain way from the top, like a predator would try to eat him like that, they hiss. Can you hear the hissing? They hiss and huff and puff, and they will kind of they can get like almost like goosebumps when they want to on demand and command, and they stick their spines in different directions, stick them out, and they're really, really sharp, y'all. They're like cactus spines, and it's okay, buddy. I'm sorry. And they will roll up in a ball. They have the ability to roll and stretch their skin all over themselves and cover their entire head, all of their little legs, and hide in that self-made armor ball. And they have all these spines which keep them very, very safe. That is their main defense and really one and only defense. They can bite, but that's not much defense against most predators. Their teeth are pretty what's the word? Spiky? Pretty spiky teeth. They kind of have teeth that remind me of like a dog or a little more uniform, almost like if you mix a dog and a dolphin together. That's what the hedgehog's teeth remind me of. They're really strange. They have a long snout and like little pointy teeth. They are predators. These guys are insectivores. They're not vegetarians. So they do have a little bit of biting action there, but not much. Not against most predators that they would come across in the wild. So rolling up into a ball and poking their predator instead happens to be their main way to stay safe. And since they are so small, there's only a few predators that really would bother with an animal this size for what it's worth, right? So they're covered in the spines, and then you only get a little bit of prize after all that work. So most predators say, nah, never mind, I'm going to go eat something else. This is too much work, right? Hedgehogs, they're so silly. In the wild, they are fully nocturnal. These guys will only come out at night. And during the day, they live underground most of the time. So they're typically going to house around things like termite mounds. Termite mounds are big, like giant anthills on steroids in Africa, and they're full of termites, right? These guys love to eat termites, so living around termites makes sense. And then they have like tunnel systems and things like that underground underneath their big termite mounds they live in. So these guys will oftentimes go underneath the termite mounds and live there. That's a great home for a hedgehog during the day. They'll sleep all the time and come out when it's nice and dark. That's going to help them stay safe. Their main predator is going to be animals like owls. Owls can still pick them up with their talons, right? Carry them away and then eat them later. And an owl has a pretty long beak that they can actually eat the hedgehog without getting poked too much. So that's their main predator in the wild. Now, as far as their senses go, their sense of smell is the best. They can actually smell pretty far down beneath the surface of the ground. So if they're on the ground, they can actually smell about 6 to 8 inches below the ground, maybe even further. And that's going to help them to find things like bugs to dig up and eat, termites, things like that. They can eat any kind of insect as long as it's not a super duper venomous insect, but they also eat scorpions, and they can eat tarantulas, whatever they come across that's not too dangerous to them. They can go ahead and eat it right up. Delicious. And they have to eat every single day. And they run around looking for food every single, well, night, not really daytime, but 24-hour period, right? Sleep the day away, come out at night, run around, very active. Not sonic speed, but pretty speedy for a little guy. Oh my gosh, I have a question from Ricky. Hi, Ricky. Ricky says, it's a good question. It's kind of a risque question. I love it. How do hedgehogs breed? Do their quills get in the way? Or are they immune to their sharpness? That's a good question. Well, if you haven't noticed, underneath, there's no spines. So hedgehogs really don't have quills. They have spines, which are almost the same thing as quills. Quills are bigger, more hollow, and a lot of quills are much more dangerous than spines. These little spines are only on the dorsal, only on the top of the hedgehog. So he's got them on the top of his head like a little hairstyle, and then his face and his belly and his legs, that's all really soft hair. Let's see if he'll let me pick him up like this. This is not going to hurt him. I just want to make sure you can see the belly and everything underneath there. So that's all soft. When they are ready to breed, they will kind of meet each other. They'll go out to dinner, maybe have a movie, Just kidding. They'll get to know one another, and if the female is receptive to breeding, her spines won't stick up like that. They're not necessarily going to do that at each other and be like, because they're not really afraid of each other. They know that they're not going to hurt each other. It's more of a territorial thing that they don't want to be together. They just want their own space. But when it's breeding time, she's like, all right. So the spines will lay down flat, and then everything that's, underneath there where they need to breed is soft. So they don't really have any problems. Porcupines is a lot harder, but they still get the job done as well. It's a little more graphic than hedgehog breeding, but just in a nutshell, that's how they do it. They're not going to really affect each other with the spines. They're pretty good at being consensual, I guess. Anything non-consensual, that just wouldn't happen. They're able to ball up and say no, and that wouldn't happen. Very adorable, I agree. Hope that answers your question, Ricky. And another common question we get about hedgehogs, about their breeding, is going to be babies. So babies are called hoglets. Hoglets are born with almost no hair. They have like a little bit of hair, almost like a baby mouse. They're kind of naked, and they definitely do not have spines. So they're not going to affect their mother when being born. They actually get their spines a few days later. Those spines will like harden. The spines, by the way, are just specialized hair. It's almost like a mix between a fingernail and a hair, and they do fall out and regrow. They do that, don't they, Linus? He's so cute. I just love him. He's got enough sass to ball up sometimes, but he's also very quote-unquote friendly. But please do not get a hedgehog, especially if you're not some sort of advanced animal keeper. I definitely think a hedgehog is actually an advanced animal, believe it or not. They may not be super dangerous to humans or anything like that, but in order to keep them super healthy and thriving, they are an advanced care animal. We have one of our hedgehogs, Laverne is our other hedgehog. She's like 4 years old now, which is old for a hedgehog. Hedgehogs in the wild live around 2, and hedgehogs in human care can live up to 5. And Laverne's getting up there, so she's still kicking, but I mean, not doing the best as she used to, right? But that's another kind of down, what do you call it? Kind of con to having a hedgehog is their low life expectancy. Even the oldest of the old, it's no more than 5 years. They don't live very long, and that's only in human care. In the wild, they wouldn't live that long. So their senses: sense of smell, great. Sense of hearing, wonderful. Sense of touch, great. Sense of taste, great. Sense of sight, really bad. So they're tiny. Oh, look at his teeth. Oh my gosh, so cute. Vampire. He's got little beady black eyes. Those eyes really don't see much. So they have very, very nearsighted vision, very blurry. Very, very blurry, no color, but they don't really need their eyes. A lot of nocturnal animals, they develop such heightened senses other than vision that they don't really need vision anymore. In fact, a blind hedgehog would probably still make it just fine. So they're nearly blind. They're super, super hard of seeing. They need all the glasses, and so cute. And they have all the rest of their senses very, very heightened for them. So that's a cool thing about hedgehogs. But a lot of nocturnal animals, they do the opposite, like the owl. Owl has big, giant eyes that can see really well at night. So nocturnal animals either have great vision or bad, really bad. Guys, he's so cute. But I would never, ever recommend a hedgehog for a pet for any human, let alone a Christmas gift for a child. Let's see what else we have to talk about on our topics, because I'm getting so distracted by our cute hedgehog. Can you blame me? Linus, again, is another rehomed animal. I was on the fence about taking Linus in. We were looking for another hedgehog as an animal ambassador, but hedgehogs are not my favorite. Like I mentioned before, in all honesty, they're not my favorite. So I was like, well, let me think about it. And then I had the person that informed me about Linus was like giving me all the details and all the things. And I was like, oh, okay, let me take a look and things like that. I just fell in love. He is just a sweetie pie. I love him. I'm so glad that we adopted him, and he'll be here his whole life with us. And he is so popular, you guys. These guys are requested a lot for animal programs, which is the responsible thing to do instead of impulse getting a hedgehog for your child or anyone in your family or any of your loved ones, or even a class pet. I don't recommend them for class pets. They're not good class pets. Some people out there, you may have one and you're doing a great job. Keep it up, but I don't recommend them. They're just not the best. Class pets are maybe another topic for another time, right? We're talking about Christmas gifts this time. But let's see here. I know, if I put my hand on top of him, he gets upset, but I don't want him to fall. Surprise animal gifts. So that's kind of on the same family or vein as impulse buying live animals, but also surprise animal gifts. So say it's, sweet Uncle Charlie, and sweet Uncle Charlie's like, oh my gosh, little Susie, she loves hedgehogs. She's seen that Sonic movie 100 times, and she plays the video game. She would love a pet hedgehog. So I'm going to surprise her with a pet hedgehog. I'm sure little Susie is going to be really, really happy to get a pet hedgehog. Parents, I hope, were involved in the decision, and it wasn't a surprise to them. But do you think it's necessarily a good idea to surprise the person getting the gift, the child, whoever? Could be your wife, could be anyone, could be your mom. Do you think it's a good idea in general to surprise them with the animal they're getting with no research and on impulse? That probably isn't a good idea, right? Because they may not even be in a point in their life where they're mentally ready for a new animal. Maybe they are, and they've been talking about it for years, etc. And every animal is going to be different, and a lot of animals make much better pet choices than, say, a hedgehog or even a snake and things like that, or a bird. Some animals, maybe it's a puppy, and that puppy has just been, they've been doing their research on this XYZ breed. Maybe they want a Borzoi, and they've been doing research on Borzoi dogs for their whole life, and that's their dream to own one, and they have the perfect environment and backyard and everything for a Borzoi, and they're in the right frame of mind. It's still probably a good idea to let them know that they may or may not be getting a dog, right? Because that's a big deal. So surprise animal gifts, that may not be the best choice, right? But I know it happens. It happens a lot. It happens less than it used to back in the old days, right? And even before my generation and things. All you boomers out there, you tell me if you got surprise animal gifts in your time. I think it's getting better because we're getting more educated. We know that animals are not disposable, right? Whether or not it could be the animal passes away, or it could be the animal is given away. They're not disposable. They're a lifetime commitment for their life, right? Very, very important. So that's kind of what we're talking about. So probably best to at least make sure it's okay with the family, the parents, all of that. Thank you so much, Uncle. You're very sweet. And I'm sure you love your niece or nephew, but be careful with that, right? Or even like friends or in-laws or whoever. We want to make 100% sure, or maybe there's a backup plan for the animal. Maybe the animal is really for the family, but you're gifting it to the child or someone, right? Maybe it's an older child, then they're super responsible. They've already shown they're responsible. Every single family and every single situation, an animal is different. But do I recommend it? No, I don't. What I do recommend is lots of research before adopting any type of animal or even getting anything in your life, right? And the other thing I recommend is trying them out first. Another really fun thing about hedgehogs, or not so fun thing, is a lot of people are actually allergic to them. Some people can't even hold a hedgehog. Not only do they have spiky spines, they can also make your hands itch and break out into a rash. Isn't that fun? What a good pet. Some people are very allergic. Some people are allergic to dogs, or allergic to cats, or rabbits, or horses. Lots of animals can bring up allergies, right, buddy? Usually people that are allergic to hedgehogs, it's not really an airborne thing or a breathing problem. It's typically a rash on your hand, and it does hurt to hold them. You have to get really used to being poked. Even the nicest hedgehog like Linus, he can still poke you, and it does hurt, and you don't want to be holding them and then drop them, or hurt yourself too bad. But also is that fun rash that you can get. So that's really important to you if you're super serious about, say, a hedgehog or whatever animal. You want to make sure you maybe touch one first, hold one, maybe even take care of one, maybe even meet our animals first. We don't really allow touching with our hedgehogs per se for our animal programs, but we allow touching with some of our other animals, and you can see if you're allergic to a rabbit or a guinea pig or something, right? And hopefully you do know that for a fact before you adopt them, because then you've made a decision, made a commitment, and then you may have to unmake that commitment, unfortunately, right? Okay, you guys. But that is all I have to say about that. I think Linus did a great job because he's a wonderful hedgehog. The best hedgehog ever. That's hard to say 5 times fast. Look at that cute face, Instagram. You're getting all the hedgehog content. We have to make more content with him. He is so cute. What would you guys like to see on some of the other videos coming up? Right now we're talking about Christmas gifts. Are animals good Christmas gift choices? I don't think so. You probably don't think so either, but let's discuss. Okay, let's go ahead and let Linus go back into his temporary enclosure down below, and he's going to rest just for a little bit. And then he's going to party it up all night because it's nighttime. And hedgehogs are super nocturnal animals. So yeah, so today, once again, we're going to get rid of this because our hedgehog is gone. That was just for him in case he had a little accident, which he did. I am super shocked that he had a little bit of a poop during being out here. That is super common. I'm going to wash my hands real fast. So our last animal friends, I'm going to attempt to have them all out here at the same time. We're going to have one mammal, 2 reptiles, and they're all pretty much friends. And they often do programs together, so they typically do get along. So let's go ahead and pause really fast on most of our social. I'll be right back in a flash. Instagram, you're going to have to hang on and be patient as always. Thank you for your patience. Again, we are talking about a very specific topic. Do animals make good Christmas gifts? And why or why not? That might be true. So I'm going to pause here, and I'll be right back. And we're back. Let me get rid of this banner real fast. Oh my gosh, I think I'm going to have to do this. And unfortunately, get rid of our big banner. I've tried my best. But we're going to have to do that so you can see the animals, of course. I'm going to pick him up real quick. Scoot this back ever so slightly so you can see all the animals that are walking out of frame. So the tortoise right here, his name is Shelton John. He's a red-footed tortoise. This is Iggy the guinea pig and Debbie the bearded dragon. And they're all eating dandelion greens, fresh plucked from my yard. Please don't feed weeds from your yard, dandelion greens, etc., unless you know you don't have pesticides on them. And even then, you should probably rinse them. I did rinse mine as well. Oh my gosh, I can't believe they're out of frame still. That's so frustrating. I'm doing my best for y'all. There's Shelton's face and Debbie's tail will go up here beside me. So all 3 of these guys are other animals that have been rehomed to us. Shelton actually came from a rescue organization for reptiles in the Dallas area. I believe the organization was from the Dallas area, but they could have just been visiting the Dallas area when we were at a reptile convention that year. But I did adopt him from a reptile rescue kind of company. But he was previously in another home. So he is kind of the exception. He wasn't given to us like directly from another owner. Debbie, the bearded dragon, was given to us by her previous owner. And Iggy was given to us by his previous owner, the guinea pig here. And he's had several homes before us. He will never have another home after this. He is going to be with me forever. He's one of my favorite animals in our entire collection. Shelton, also one of my very favorites. And Debbie too. I guess they're all my favorite. But Iggy is so special. Iggy is a Peruvian guinea pig. Debbie the bearded dragon. It's an Australian native species. These guys are very, very popular pet reptiles. And then we have Shelton the tortoise, right? So he's a red-footed tortoise. All excellent animals and all excellent potential pet animals for the right person. Please don't fight over the same piece of dandelion greens. There's enough for all of you. There you go, Debbie. Did you know that bearded dragons actually eat salad and greens? It's very important for them to eat those things. They are omnivores, though, and bearded dragons eat also other animals, not just plants. Maybe you can see him a little better right there. Tortoises are herbivores, and of course, guinea pigs are not omnivores. They're herbivores too. So these guys have a really similar diet. These guys are actually from the same continent, which is South America. Guinea pigs are grazers, and tortoises in that place, and tortoises all over the world are typically grazers as well, or at least eating plant matter on the ground because they can't climb trees, right? Bearded dragons are omnivores, so they eat all kinds of things. They eat other animals that are very tiny, like bugs, and they'll also eat all sorts of vegetation. These guys are great survivors because they do have a lot of items they can eat in the wild. A very common species to see in Australia, but also a common species to see as a pet all over the world. So let's talk about that. So these three, I think, make great pets for the right family. I think that hedgehogs make terrible pets for everybody, unless you're an expert, and they still are a challenge. And I think snakes are pretty decent pets for the right family too. I think these three make much better pets than the others. Shelton is probably the most challenging because, number one, tortoises live a very long time. You probably know that, right? Tortoises are some of the oldest and longest lived animals on the planet. They actually can live, well, this species can live into their 60s or even 70s. Sometimes they live a long, long lifespan when properly cared for, right? Red-footed tortoises are very, very hardy and resilient to poor care, so they can even outlive poor care. Not that I recommend caring for them improperly, right? But they can survive very, very well. They're known for that. So a very big commitment as an animal to have their whole life, because that can be outliving you. So that's the main challenge with the tortoise. Also, tortoises are super messy too. So the hedgehog, if you thought they were messy, that's child's play. Tortoises, for a reptile, are super duper gross. They have a lot of capacity to poop. And tortoises, taking it right out of his mouth. Tortoises actually really thrive outdoors. So if you live in an environment where you can't keep your tortoise outside, you have to think about giving them really, really good lighting inside, and of course heat inside, because this is a tropical species. They also need a lot of humidity. So red-footed tortoises in particular need to be soaked a lot. They need to have a lot of humidity. They need to have the right substrate or keep them outdoors. They also need natural sun. Bearded dragons are pretty good and common pets because they're easy to house inside, easy-ish. As long as you give them the right type of lighting, they will thrive in an indoor enclosure. They do very, very well. Bearded dragons are also very, very handleable. I think that's why people like them the most. It's because they don't get enormous for a lizard, and they are super duper friendly and handleable and very charismatic. Guinea pigs make excellent pets. They're domesticated, unlike these two, and unlike the other previous animals we've seen tonight. Guinea pigs are actually domesticated, which means they're a separate species now than they used to be when they were wild. That means that they're more adapted to being around humans than they used to be. So guinea pigs in the wild look nothing like Iggy. Iggy is a Peruvian long-haired guinea pig, looking very fancy, looking like a little wig over here. But in the wild, they're going to have very short hair. They're going to have longer legs than the domestic variety. They're going to have more upright ears. And they're going to be like kind of a faster, more wild-looking animal. That makes a lot of sense, right? So they survive by staying in big groups called herds, and they survive by running away and hiding. That's really their main defense, even in the wild. They're not known for really biting other animals or attacking because they don't have much of a little mouth. Their mouth is very tiny, and their teeth aren't super sharp for a rodent, even though they are a rodent, like a squirrel or like a rat, which can bite a lot harder. A lot of rodents bite really hard, and that's their defense. Guinea pigs, not so much. But guinea pigs nowadays that live in people's homes are not a wild animal at all. They're actually also like a dog, where they are a separate species, is what I'm trying to say. So they're domesticated. So they make great pets in that manner, but there's always a but. Guinea pigs are not super low maintenance. They're actually pretty high maintenance for what they are. Even though they're domesticated, they're super messy. Sorry, I'm backing up into the wall here. They're super messy. They need at least once, if not twice daily cleanup. They need to be supervised to make sure they have enough water because they're up for 20 hours a day, which means they're going to suck away their water really, really fast. And you have to make sure they don't run out. So like a big water bottle is best for them, or even 2 water bottles. They also need friends. These guys need to be with a group. There are a few guinea pig exceptions that don't like other guinea pigs. That does happen sometimes. But Debbie, are you done? Oh, she's not done. She's like, oh, they're still eating. I'm going to eat too. Here, eat that one. Eat that one. There you go. They're cute. So the thing, they need to usually be with other guinea pigs for their own sanity. Lone guinea pigs don't usually live long or do well, but there are exceptions. I've known some exceptions to do very well by themselves. It just all depends. If you do want a guinea pig, I highly, highly recommend an adult guinea pig, so you know their personality, because baby guinea pigs can change from their personality as an adult. Kind of like cats, right? And then, oh, you guys are gonna eat literally all the greens I brought? Okay, sure. It's good for you. Eat your salad. Eat your salad. There's like a random leaf in there from the yard because this is from the yard, from our yard. But in general, they're social, so they need each other. Even if you have a lone guinea pig, it's actually good to have another guinea pig group or another guinea pig in the cage, like adjacent to them, nearby, so they can still smell and hear and see other guinea pigs. That helps them to be less stressed. However, if you want a guinea pig, the best way to get a guinea pig is actually by a rescue. So, and I'm talking about like a guinea pig rescue. So look up those in your area. There's actually a really good one here in the San Antonio, Texas area, and they will actually kind of tell you like which guinea pigs are right for you. They may even have guinea pigs that are already paired up or trioed up that get along, and you can adopt them as a group or a duo, and then you're good to go. But they may have guinea pigs that need to be alone. So you may be able to get one guinea pig, but I wouldn't go about that on your own. And do all your research. We do not keep our guinea pigs on any loose substrate. They actually live on fleece blankets to keep them dust free, because that's another challenge with guinea pigs is they can actually get upper respiratory problems and get very sick very fast and pass away very fast because they can't breathe. And if you keep them not on loose substrate that's dusty, of course, they need their hay. Hay is their main diet, not just greens. The hay is okay, and they eat Timothy hay. That's usually not that dusty. But I'm talking about people that keep them like on substrates and things. Don't eat Debbie's toes. Here, we'll move Debbie away for a little bit. Debbie, you can go over there. Iggy, you can come back over here. Shelton, you can go there. We got to manage all these animals at once. I told you I was going to do my best. We're going to do our best. Would you like some more, Debbie? Here she comes. Iggy, where are you going? Shelton's in the way. Okay, we're going to have a big old collision over here if I'm not careful. Where are you going? He's going to eat my laptop and maybe turn off the show if I'm not careful. Iggy. Okay. But there's a lot to think about. They do tend to make very, very good animal companions for the right family. Can you hear him purring? That's a guinea pig purr. That's a very happy sound. And not all guinea pigs are this friendly either. Iggy's been a very, very special guinea pig, very social, very into humans. He is our rescue guinea pig. And it's so cool that happened, because you wouldn't think that a rescue or rehomed animal would necessarily be the friendliest, right? You would kind of think the opposite. A lot of people think that you have to raise animals up from babies. What is your deal? Where do you want to go? You have to stay here. You do. You have to stay here. A lot of people think that just because you rescue an animal, that means that they're not going to be as friendly, but that's just not the case. You just need to make sure and adopt the animal that's right for you in your situation. A lot of times that means a secondhand animal or a rescue critter of some sort. Maybe they make the best animal for you, and you're the best human for them. So it's always something to think about. So how about back to our topics, right? Ooh, that's a good shake off. Should you adopt? So we talked about surprise animals, right? That's probably not a good idea. We want to at least communicate in some capacity to the people or persons that you are giving the animals to. So should you adopt or shop? That's kind of what we're talking about right now, right? A lot of these animals are rehomed in some capacity. Don't eat the laptop, Iggy. Do not. He's so excited. Should you adopt or shop? Now, my general recommendation for this is you should probably look into adopting first. And if there's just not the right fit for you, maybe you just can't find the right match, then you can look into responsible people to purchase from, such as breeders that have been doing it for a while, that know what they're doing. They're giving you healthy animals, etc. Is this what you want? You just want more snacks? There you go. Snacks are always the answer, I guess. Oh, Iggy, so spoiled. So yes, so we definitely have animals in our collection here at Once in a Wild that are from like responsible and reputable breeders. For example, Sandor, our Flemish giant rabbit. It's really not realistic to find a Flemish giant rabbit just like in a shelter. You might be able to find one with maybe you're patient enough to wait that long. But if you are supporting small businesses that breed these animals responsibly and not like in a mill or, certainly not a puppy mill or something like that, or a pet store even, things like that, that's probably not the best idea for some of those animals. Sometimes there's specialized pet stores that are fine. For example, there's a lot of really, really good reptile pet stores that I've been to throughout my life. But there are exceptions, but in general, it's not the best first go-to to go straight to the pet store in order to get a new animal, right? So rescuing is always best. You're going to be saving their life. Here you go. And giving them a home that they greatly deserve. Oh my gosh. How cute. We almost had a Lady in the Tramp moment here. If I try hard enough, I'm sure I can get a Lady in the Tramp moment. This is a hot mess today, you guys. You want to be there on top of Shelton? That would be fine. I just don't want Iggy to nibble you, so we're gonna go over here. This is not snacks. This is Debbie, and you know that. Why don't you come over here and get these snacks? This is real life, y'all. Told you. So that is a great first step. Is to try to adopt. Shelter animals, fantastic, especially dogs and cats, you guys. Even if you want like a specific breed of dog or a breed of cat, you can look into rescues of those specific breeds. A lot of times they will have animals that make sense for you in rescues, and they actually have purebred dog and cat rescues all over the place. So that is something you can research and try to find. And if you can't make a match made in heaven, then I would look for something reputable, like a reputable breeder. That is a little controversial, right? Because we know that shelter pets are unfortunately euthanized because there's too many of them and things like that. But again, I'm not necessarily condemning it if you want to purchase a pet. We just have to do it responsibly, right? So adopt or shop. I mean, it all kind of depends, doesn't it? Depends on your situation. All this stuff is kind of depends. It depends on you, depends on the animal, depends on your lifestyle. You want to keep some stuff in mind to make sure you're being responsible. Of course, y'all know that. Iggy is a cutie, yes. Yes, you shouldn't leave yet. We've got Debbie, Shelton, and Iggy at the same time. What didn't you know? You were saying you didn't know something. What didn't you know? And if y'all have any questions, let me know. All right, back to our banners. It all kind of depends. Every situation is a different situation, and I'm not going to judge you guys. I just want to make sure that you guys are making educated choices, and that's what we're here for. If you ever have specific questions that you want to address to us, feel free to do so. Feel free to reach out to other experts in general and other people that have experience in general. That way you can make an educated decision. Right, guys? Here's some things you want to keep in mind when making any of your animal adoption decisions. Whether it's a Christmas gift, which is what we're talking about today, right? Christmas is coming up. You may be thinking about gifting an animal to your loved one. It could be a child, it could be an adult. You want to think about preparation. We want to prepare the following. Housing. That's really important. Where are you going to put this animal? Do you already have an enclosure or a home for the animal? Do you have a kennel for the dog? Do you want a kennel or do you not want a kennel? Do you have another situation that you can train your new puppy or your new dog? I highly recommend kennels. Kennels is what I've always had success with in training my dogs. We have 3 dogs, and they've always liked their kennels. But if you're not going to kennel, then you have to have some alternative, right, for training them to be housebroken and things like that. Look, Iggy, I found more treats. There you go. But if it's an exotic animal, you need to have proper housing for that exotic animal, right? You need to, if you have a tortoise coming to your household, you want to make sure and have a tortoise enclosure that makes sense for that size of tortoise and that species of tortoise. Do not eat Debbie. Debbie is not snacks. She is friends, not food. Iggy's just trying to find all the crumbs, and she's like, is this a crumb? Oh, it's just Debbie. Sorry, Debbie. Debbie, run for your life. Iggy's on a rampage. So housing, super important, right? Exotic or domesticated, doesn't matter. You have to have proper housing. A lot of the housing that you may be familiar with or that you look up is not proper housing for that particular animal. Again, I've linked a bunch of our past videos down below in the description. And if you want, you can look at the playlist or our past live streams in general. If you're on YouTube, by the way, you have to go to live to look at all of our past live streams. So we've got other short videos as well. But the live streams have more information for you. So you want to look at housing, bird enclosures, if you have a bird coming, etc. Of course, housing. Diet, you want to do proper research on diet. And like I said, with the housing situation, with the enclosure situation, you want to make sure it's updated information. Debbie, don't turn off the show. It's updated information because some of that might be outdated, right? Some of the old ways that we used to house and take care of animals are not the new ways. We want to make sure we're doing the right thing. That way you have the happiest animal you can have. Iggy, you're crazy tonight. Did you know that guinea pigs are actually awake for 20 hours in a 24-hour period? So they only sleep for about 4 to 5 hours a day total. Enrichment. What is enrichment? That means entertaining your animal, essentially. So toys, things to do, friends, if they need friends, attention or not attention. Maybe it's giving them peace and quiet and alone time. Maybe it's giving them the right temperatures as well. That has to do with housing too, and proper care. And then things like vet care. So if you, especially, I mean, of course you have a dog, you need to get them their vaccinations once a year, or when they're puppies, they get more vaccinations at first, right? And then they're, immune afterwards. They develop their immune system. You want to do research on which vaccinations to get. Talk to your reputable veterinarian. You want to find a reputable veterinarian. When you have a cat or a dog, you want to think about getting them neutered or spayed, right? Always responsible there. If you are not a breeder, you should not have an unneutered or unspayed animal, in my opinion, when it comes to cats and dogs, especially. Some of the other animals, debatable, right? Because they're different than cats and dogs. But nonetheless, you want to have a good vet. So good vet care, whether it's a domestic like a cat or a dog or a horse or a chicken or a duck, or an exotic animal too. And when we're talking about pets, exotic animals are not just foreign animals. So when we talk about exotic animals like on the show, or we're talking about animal information, technically exotic is from somewhere else, foreign to you. So for example, Debbie is not a local animal that we would find here in the United States. So she is an exotic to the United States. She's an Australian species. Shelton as well is from South America. So he's an exotic species too. This is a domestic species, so they're not technically exotic. But in the pet world, when you're looking for a veterinarian, this is an exotic animal. It's not a cat. It's not a dog. And even if it were a horse or a livestock animal, you would have to have a vet that specializes in those large animals or small, maybe chickens and things like that, or even rabbits. Rabbits are not technically exotic, but in the vet world / pet world, they are. So you want to make sure and have a good exotic vet if you have a quote unquote exotic pet, which is anything except a cat or a dog in a nutshell. So you want to have a very reputable vet. Please do not just choose a vet on a whim for an exotic animal or exotic pet, or really any animal. You want to make sure they have reputable, references. You want to look at maybe like reviews and things like that and make sure, unless you have personal experience with that veterinarian. Be very careful. And I'm not trying to knock any vets out there. I'm just trying to make sure your pets are safe, right? And then last but not least, training. You want to think about training. Now, if you have an animal that's a pretty simple critter, like a snake, you don't need to do a ton of training, but you do need to do some handling with that animal. And if you have an animal as advanced as a bird, you definitely need to think about more quote unquote advanced training or enrichment. And that's going to be bonding with your bird and making sure they're tame and trained to be able to do things like husbandry behaviors, like nail trims, or even just stepping up to your hand, putting them in and out of their enclosure at night and in the morning, etc. Right? So if you don't know how to do any of that, you're going to have to look up how to do all of that, or do lots of research, or learn from someone, right? And there's many ways to do that. We have some information on that on our YouTube as well, and on all of our social media. If you ever have specific questions about any of that, I'm more than happy to answer specific questions. But those are a lot of things to think about before bringing a beautiful little animal into your life, or a big animal, right? So you could be doing a ton of research on a bearded dragon, and then you decide, yes, I want to get a bearded dragon, but you may forget to look for a good veterinarian for the bearded dragon, which is very, very important. It's just as important as housing and diet and all the things, right? Handling, enrichment. Bearded dragons are really, really smart and clever animals. They need a lot to do, or they need to be out and about looking at new things every day, which is what our bearded dragons do. They travel a lot and see lots of different situations and things. I'm afraid she's gonna get nibbled by Iggy. Why don't you stay on top of Shelton? He won't hurt you. He's basically a rock, a living rock. So yes, a lot of things to keep in mind. I know we're laughing and giggling and having a great time, but this is actually a pretty serious subject. Iggy, I'm gonna have to fire you here in a minute. You're getting into everything. You're usually not this much of a menace. Be good. But it is all fun and games, but these are also living creatures. We want to make sure and take care of them as best we can. So there's a lot to think about, even when adopting something small, like a bearded dragon or a snake or anything, even a little guinea pig guy or a bunny for Easter. There's a lot of things to think about. But for this Christmas, we don't really recommend getting animals on a whim, animals for surprises, and certainly not impulse buying any animals. And of course, animals are lifelong commitment. That may not be for your whole life, but it might be for things like tortoises and some parrots and things like that. Some animals outlive us as human beings, but their animal is going to have its whole life. So that's what I mean by this. So it's a lifelong commitment for the animal itself. You want to give them a forever home if possible, right? But if you run into a problem where you can't provide them a forever home for their whole life, then you need to think about your plan B, right? So we should always probably have a plan B anyway. We all, of course, on first ideas when getting animals is we want to get them a forever home, but life happens and sometimes you need a plan B. So that's always a good thing to keep in mind with these living critters. Oh my gosh. Iggy is just his own thing today. Isn't he, Debbie? Now he's going to clean his little face like nothing happened. He's like, I didn't do anything. Well, you guys, I hope you've enjoyed the program. I know it was kind of hectic in the end there. I hope you learned something. I hope this got you thinking about Christmas and things like that. Oh, here's a great question. From Ricky, is bigger always better when it comes to housing, that is, he said. Usually yes, but not always. Every situation is different. Some animals, when given too much space, they may feel a little bit exposed. And some animals, for example, when they need like the proper heating and lighting and things, for example, ball pythons do really well in really large enclosures, but then you have to keep in mind that you have to up their lighting and heating and whatnot, and all the things that they need, more hides, more places to go, more things to do. Iggy, you're fired. Quit nibbling Debbie. Debbie's like, I quit. He's like, is that a carrot? No, it is not. Scoots. I know. He's like, give me all the attention. It's all about me. It's the Iggy show today. It's only Iggy all the time. So like, for example, a snake, a ball python, for example, they need heating because they're animals that don't do well in the cold. They have to have at least a heat lamp, heat pad, things like that. And even you can do lights too. So if you up the size of the enclosure, then you're going to have to up the lights and you're going to have to up the heating and whatever you're doing in there. You can't just give them the same lighting and heating that you would give a reptile in a smaller enclosure. Does that make sense? So usually, yes, more space is great for most animals. But if you can't give them a ton of space, then you can just plan to have them out of their enclosure sometimes to give them exercise. Exercise is always great. For example, hedgehogs. Hedgehogs can't have a whole room usually. We give them a sizable enclosure, big enough for them, but we also give them an exercise wheel so they can exercise. That is an essential item for a hedgehog. Hedgehogs must have exercise, and a wheel is very important. But it's the right wheel. It has to be a solid kind of plastic wheel usually, so they don't get their little legs stuck in the holes of the wheel. I'm so glad you learned a lot. That's so exciting. A lot of animals do better with more space, but it all depends. I advise you, if you ever have a new animal coming into your life, or you have an animal that you've had forever and you just want advice, I would just advise people to talk to people with experience, talk to the experts, and see what you can improve with your current animals or animals in the future. One animal that does really well with lots of space is rabbits. Rabbits do not do well in cages. You can do an exercise pen, which is just like a fence situation essentially in your home. Rabbits must be indoors to thrive. They don't do well outside. The seasonal changes for rabbits are not great, in my opinion. And also rabbits can experience things like predators and parasites and all sorts of challenges outdoors. Some climates like California or things like that might be good weather. So you might be able to get away with it in places like that. But here in Texas, especially anything that's hotter than like 70 degrees, they really should not be outside all the time. They really should be an indoor animal. And rabbits do really well with like a room or your entire home. If you can rabbit proof your home and make it safe for them, because rabbits have to be rabbit proofed in that space. But they don't do well in an enclosure or even a hutch. We have a whole rabbit video that I've linked, I think, down below. And if I haven't linked it down below, then you can go find it on our YouTube. It's Is a Rabbit the Right Pet for You? That's a good one too. And that talks all about their housing. They do very well with more space. Iggy is a hot mess today. I think that's my cue to let him go back home. Shelton and Debbie, you did a great job. Iggy, you're in trouble. We love him anyway. He's usually an angel. Guinea pigs do great with a lot of space, but not like enormous space, right? Because then they can feel a little exposed. They need places to hide and friends to feel safe along with. I'm so glad that you guys enjoyed it. And let me know in messages or somehow get back to me on what you would like to see on other live streams. We will be streaming once a month instead of once a week. Once on a Wild Wednesday. Every first Wednesday of the month, we're going to be here streaming for you guys. And I hope you enjoyed it across social media. Let me know which is your favorite social media. I'll do my best to make more TikToks. I promise that'll be my New Year's resolution. And I hope you guys have learned a whole lot about pet animals and whether or not you should impulse buy or gift animals for Christmas. Hopefully you'll think long and hard before adopting any animal into your life, whether a cat, dog, snake, lizard, tortoise, guinea pig, hedgehog. Don't even do a hedgehog. I don't recommend them. Or anything at all. Horse, duck. What else? Goose. Who knows what you have at home or what you're thinking about. Do all your research. Make sure to give that animal the best permanent home they can have to the best of your ability. And if not, always have a plan B in mind. And until next time, I hope you guys had a wonderful time, and we'll see you guys next week. Or next week. No, we won't. We'll see you guys next month. Bye. We are not too close to ordinary, but we love to be your friend. Hold our hands and let's have fun together, singing as loud as you can. Everybody singing once in a while. Together. Once in a while. I want to hear you say once in a while. That's the fun for me and you. Bye, everyone. Sheldon says thank you, and we'll see you next month. And we'll be posting reruns in the meantime every single week. We'll see y'all later. Bye. Bye, everyone.